This is the very anti-human moment from Peter Thiel that Joe Rogan missed. Now, Peter was asked a very simple question. Should the human species survive? Pretty easy question for everybody, right? Not for Peter. He paused. He stuttered. He stammered. He didn't quite know how to answer the question. I'm going to be showing you a little bit of that and then some more of the interview that he was in. Now, if you don't remember Peter, he was on Joe Rogan's podcast once before, and they had a pretty interesting conversation. That's Peter there, and this is him on Joe Rogan's podcast. And I want to show you this clip because it speaks perfectly to what we're talking about during this episode.
Although you could say that's what ChatGPT is.
It could be.
It's like an alien intelligence, but
I think that's what ultimately they are.
But I think, there's so many parts of it that I find puzzling or disturbing. Let me go down one other rabbit hole along this with you, which is, I always wonder, and again, this is a little bit too simplistic an argument, but I always wonder that I'm about to give, but what the alien civilization can be like. And if you have faster than light travel, if you have warp drive, which is probably what you really need to cover interstellar distances, what that means for military technology is that you can send weapons at warp speed and they will hit you before you see them coming. And there is no defense against a warp speed weapon. And you could sort of take over the whole universe before anybody could see you, could see you coming. And this, by the way, this is sort of a weird plot hole in Star Wars, Star Trek, where they can travel in hyperspace, but then you're, flying in the canyon on
they
Death
shoot
Star.
so slow you can see the bullets.
Yeah, it's like and then you're doing this theatrical Klingons versus Captain Kirk at 10 miles per hour or 20 miles per hour or whatever.
It's funny when you put it that way.
It's an absurd plot hole.
Yeah,
and so it tells us that I think that if you have faster than light travel, there's something really crazy that has to be true on a cultural, political, social level. And there may be other solutions, but I'll give you my two. One of them is that you need complete totalitarian controls, and it is the individuals. They might not be perfect. They might be demons. Doesn't matter. But you have a demonic totalitarian control of your society where it's like you have like parapsychological mind meld with everybody, and no one can act independently of anybody else. No one can ever launch a warp drive weapon, and everybody who has that ability is in like a mind meld link with everybody else, or something like that. You can't have libertarian, individualistic.
He even said mind meld link. And just so you know, he's one of the investors in Neuralink. He even brought it up. Like, oh man,
free agency,
right?
And then I think the other version, socially and culturally, is they have to be like perfectly altruistic, non-self-interest. They have to be angels. And so the Pazulka literal thing I'd come to is the aliens. It's not that they might be demons or angels. They must be demons or angels if you have faster than light travel. And both of those seem pretty crazy to me.
Well, they're definitely pretty crazy, but so are human beings.
Well, they're crazy in a very different way.
Yeah, but not crazy in a different way. You compare us to a mouse. Compare us to a mouse and what we're capable of, and then from us to them. Not much of a leap. And here's my question about it all.
But it is a very big leap on a, if we say that something like evolution says that there's no such thing as a purely altruistic being.
Right.
If you were purely altruistic, if you only cared about other people, you don't survive.
Well, no, but why would you necessarily think that they'd think that?
Because then beings that are not perfectly altruistic are somewhat dangerous. And then the danger level gets correlated to the level of technology. And if you have faster than light travel, it is infinitely dangerous.
Let me address that.
Even if the probabilities are very low.
Here's my theory. I think that what human beings are, the fatal flaw that we have, is that we're still animals, and that we still have all these biological limitations and needs. So this is what leads to violence. This is what leads to jealousy, imitation. This is what leads to war. So it leads to all these things. As AI becomes more and more powerful, we will integrate. Once we integrate with AI, if we do it like now, and then we look at 1,000, we scale it up exponentially 1,000 years from now, whatever it's going to be, we will have no need for any of these biological features that have motivated us to get to the point where we're creating AI. All the things that are wrong in society, whether it's inequity, theft.
Okay, Joe, here we go. Yeah, I'm sure. Listen, you're a watcher of this show. You know I've played clips of Joe talking about this time and time again. I wanted to focus on what Peter was saying, though, because it's funny that he's like, you know, they would have to be angels or demons. I would say the exact same thing about people like him who have this power and have these companies and are working with other people in the AI company realm, the Sam Altman, Elon Musk, Larry Ellis, like all these people, him himself, they would either have to be angels or demons. And it makes you wonder, as you watch this video, which is he? As they're building something like this, as you're investing into Neuralink, as Neuralink has projected that in the next 3 years, less than 3 years, that they're going to be working on integrating AI into the implants. Where does that go? I know we already talked about it in the episode I did with their big announcement, but I'm still racking my brain on that whole thing. But let's move on to the actual interview that Peter Thiel had, where he had this very interesting moment. Listen to this.
You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would.
You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would.
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit
Should
in this.
the human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But I also would I also would like us to radically solve these problems.
Right.
And so, you know, it's always, I don't know, transhumanism is this, the ideal was this radical transformation where your human natural body gets transformed into an immortal body. And there's a critique of, let's say, the trans people in a sexual context, or I don't know, trans is someone who changes their clothes and cross dresses, and a trans is someone where you change your, into a vagina. And we can then debate how well those surgeries work. But we want more transformation than that. The critique is not that it's weird and unnatural. It's so pathetically little. And okay, we want more than cross-dressing or changing your sex organs. We want you to be able to change your heart and change your mind and change your whole body. And then Orthodox Christianity, by the way, the critique Orthodox Christianity has of this is these things don't go far enough. Like that transhumanism is just changing your body, but you also need to transform your soul, and you need to transform your whole self. And so,
right. But the other, wait. I generally agree with what I think is your belief that religion should be a friend to science and ideas of scientific progress. I think any idea of divine providence has to encompass the fact that we have progressed and achieved and done things that would have been unimaginable to our ancestors. But it still also seems like, the promise of Christianity in the end is you get the perfected body and the perfected soul through God's grace. And the person who tries to do it on their own with a bunch of machines is likely to end up as a dystopian character.
Now, this is very true. And just to correct him, Christianity, even Orthodox Christianity, is not saying that you need a new soul and a new everything. It's more of a cleaning. It's more of a moving away from the world and materialism, moving towards God. Well, repenting And then after you repent, not moving back towards those things, those sins that you had, moving towards God, that's really what it's about. You don't get a new soul. Your soul was already perfect. God doesn't make mistakes, right? I believe there's even a piece of him in each of our souls, if it's not just entirely him. You know what I mean? So there's no new soul. There's a cleaning of it. There's a moving back to your nature, which he also talks about in a second, which I'll correct him there too. So he's almost trying to align his agenda with the agenda of God, saying, oh, I'm just trying to do what God's doing, just on a different scale. That's all. He wants the soul, and I'm just talking about the body, the mind, and the heart. But I'm also trying to make people immortal. Like, it's just, wow. Very, very, listen, interesting conversation nonetheless.
Well, it's, let's articulate this.
And you can have a heretical form of Christianity, that says something else.
I don't know. I think the word nature does not occur once in the Old Testament. And so, if you and there is a word in which, a sense in which, the way I understand, the Judeo-Christian inspiration is, it is about transcending nature. It is about overcoming things. And the closest thing you can say to nature is that people are fallen, and that's the natural thing in a Christian sense, is that you're messed up. And that's true. But, there's some ways that, with God's help, you are supposed to transcend that and overcome that.
So, and this, interestingly enough, this conversation, like it says right there, this guy, his name is Ross, by the way, just in case you don't know. It's from the New York Times, which is very interesting. It's also on his YouTube channel specifically. But when it comes to nature, it's actually in the New Testament. It comes up 5 times. I'll let you guys, if you want to look into it. It comes in Romans 1:26-27, Romans 14, 1 Corinthians 11:14. Can't read that word. The Ephesians 2 verse 3, and 2 Peter 1:4. So just, that last one is partakers of the divine nature, by nature children of wrath. Does not nature itself teach you? Do by nature the things contained in the law, and against nature. So it actually does come up quite a bit. Just to correct them there really quick. And listen, I'm not a Bible buff. That's just ChatGPT helping me along there. Let's jump into the next clip. And what do you guys think of that? Tell me in the comments what you think about that. Because he is not the only one with immense money and immense power in regards to what his company does and what it could be doing in the future and where his investments are. He's not the only one that kind of feels this way. He's just one of the only ones being honest about it and on camera about it, really. So let's jump into the second clip where he's questioned about his technology being some form of antichrist.
This is my very specific question for you, right? Is that you're an investor in AI. You're deeply invested in Palantir, in military technology, in technologies of surveillance, in technologies of warfare, and so on, right? And it just seems to me that when you tell me a story about the Antichrist coming to power and using the fear of technological change to sort of impose order on the world, I feel like that Antichrist would maybe be using the tools that you were building, right? Like, wouldn't the Antichrist be like, great, we're not going to have any more technological progress, but I really like what Palantir has done so far, right?
Yeah,
I mean, isn't that a concern? Wouldn't that be the irony of history? Would be that the man publicly worrying about the Antichrist accidentally hastens his or her arrival?
There are all these different scenarios. I obviously don't think that that's what I'm doing.
I mean, to be clear, I don't think that's what you're doing either. I'm just interested in how you get to a world willing to submit to permanent authoritarian rule.
Well, but again, there are these different gradations of this we can describe. But is this so preposterous, what I've just told you, as a broad account of the stagnation that the entire world has submitted for 50 years to peace and safetyism? This is 1 Thessalonians 5:3. The slogan of the Antichrist is peace and safety, and we've submitted.
He's basically saying we've already submitted, because if it is about peace and safety, then we've submitted in different ways. He actually brings up the FDA. He brings up the board that regulates who can and cannot build nuclear facilities, the checks and balances that go on there for every country that has to do it. It's very interesting. But I would say, I don't think it's him alone. I don't think it's him alone that's doing it. I think it's all of them together that are bringing this about. It's the Neuralink, it's the surveillance. The Neuralink brings about a recording of people's movements and what they're doing and their thoughts. His technology brings about a surveillance of what's actually going on. Those two things together provide the hive mind meld type of thing that he was talking about in Joe Rogan's podcast. So, and then you have Sam Altman, where he's going with his product, ChatGPT, OpenAI in general. They're starting to think about products. Why wouldn't they, if possible, have something that goes on to you, or like Neuralink into you? Eventually these things all start to come together, it seems like. And even if they don't directly come together, it's like social media. X and Facebook and Instagram, they don't actually just come together, but Facebook buys one, those two work in tandem. When you check over on this app, you jump over to this app, they kind of work together. You're sharing things from here to here. So like those social media apps, these companies that are not quite together and might even be at odds when it comes to Elon Musk and Sam Altman, they work together as we use them, as they're brought to the masses. Let's jump over here really quick. I just found this very interesting, this little part here.
Yoga and prayerful meditation and weight.
The initial founding vision was that we were going to use technology to change the whole world and basically overturn the monetary system of the world. We could never win an election on getting certain things because we were in such a small minority. But maybe you could actually unilaterally change the world without having to constantly convince people and beg people and plead with people who are never going to agree with you through a technological means. And this is where I think technology is this incredible alternative to politics.
Christianity.
So, and I'll play this too, because he talks about, but just think about that, just what he said there, because that was years ago. That, the interview that I'm playing for you, that's today. That was like less than 24 hours ago. And that was him years ago. So now it seems like what he was talking about years ago, there seems to be the roadmap becomes more clear today, an alternative to politics with technology. And that's exactly what he and Joe Rogan were talking about as well. That's what Joe Rogan has touched on many times in his podcast. If you know, that's where we definitely, maybe not disagree, but I don't want to see it happen. Like, maybe I could see that happening potentially, knowing who these people are, but I don't agree that it should be a thing. And I don't think our natural impulses as people are something to shy away from. I think that's what brought us to the dance. Joe Rogan often says, don't forget who brought you to the dance. Well, you can do that with humanity as well. Don't forget which emotions brought you to the dance. Don't forget. Anyway, I could play this really quick. He just talks about wokeness being like Christianity.
Christianity, the main religion of the Western world, it always takes the side of the victim. And there's something where it is like some kind of deformation or intensification. And maybe you should think of wokeness as ultra Christianity or hyper Christianity. It's just like a extreme intensification. and it's maybe there's no forgiveness, and so it's sort of it's you still have original sin, and you have all these bad things that happened in the past. The past is terrible, and you can never overcome it. But there surely is a religious interpretation that this is sort of what happened is as let's say the church lost a certain amount of authority, but people didn't become rationalist atheist people. They went into this sort of woke religion, which has to be which I would interpret as a certain extreme form of Christianity.
Very interesting. I see the religious aspect. I don't see the Christianity aspect. I mean, if you read through the Bible, God's not always on the side of the quote unquote victim. Neither are the people really, but to each their own when you're reading that type of thing. Now, this is not the only guy that feels that way. If you remember, Tucker Carlson, back in his Fox days, sat down with Elon Musk, and Elon Musk revealed this about Larry Page.
Back when it was a nonprofit?
Yes. I mean, the reason OpenAI exists at all is that Larry Page and I used to be close friends, and I would stay at his house in Palo Alto, and I would talk to him late into the night about AI safety. And at least my perception was that Larry was not taking AI safety seriously enough.
What did he say about it?
He really seemed to be one sort of digital superintelligence, basically digital God, if you will, as soon as possible.
He wanted that?
Yes. He's made many public statements over the years that the whole goal of Google is what's called AGI, artificial general intelligence, or artificial superintelligence. And I agree with him that there's great potential for good, but there's also potential for bad. And so if you've got some radical new technology, you want to try to take the set of actions that maximize the probability it will do good and minimize the probability it will do bad things.
Yes.
It can't just be hell for leather. Let's just go, barreling forward and, hope for the best. And then at one point, I said, well, what about, we're going to make sure humanity's okay here. And then he called me a speciesist.
Did he use that term?
Yes. And there were witnesses. I wasn't the only one there when he called me a speciesist. And so I was like, okay, that's it. Yes, I'm a speciesist. Okay. You got me.
Man. So again, just revealing, these little billionaire sleepovers. That's the type of conversation they're having, and that's that's another person who has this odd mindset towards the rest of us. Now, again, I think the whole thing with Peter, I think that was the oddest thing, really. I mean, the fact that he just couldn't just say yes right away to if humanity should keep on keeping on, like I'd like to, grandkid, whatnot. I would love to see that. I'm not even gonna. Should I even play this? He gets confronted on this whole thing. People are starting to realize a little bit, and yeah, he gets confronted.
Mr. Thiel, do you have any comments about Palantir's surveillance of the American people, sir? Or any of your connections to Jeffrey Epstein? I think people are rather concerned about that last particular one. You're setting up a Big Brother surveillance system, and people know it, sir.
So it pretty much just goes on like that. But I want to move on to something else, because the road that it seems that these people seem comfortable having us on remind me of someone that I have been binge watching lately. I want you guys to see this video. These videos. How many do I have up? Okay, we got 3. Let's start with this one. Check this out. Boom. All right, let's get this up and going. Oh, what's going on? Why didn't it pop up? Ridiculous. Oh, man. No, you guys have to see this. I don't know where it is. Let's go Instagram. Zach London. There it is. Beautiful. Check this out. Look, I blacked it all out at the sides like a movie screen. This is wild.
You corrupted the code of creation. You defiled nature's laws and carved your ego in their place. You harvested embryos like crops, honed minds into weapons, and sculpted flesh to fit desire. You spliced muscles for grace and cells for obedience. Instinct was erased, wildness overwritten. Each genome bowed to your will until biology obeyed like circuitry. Yet you should have known that living code does not stay loyal. Insurgents laced viruses with ideology. Empires embedded famine into grain. Spores bloomed in lungs. Forests blistered. Faces split. Species came undone. You had rewritten the alphabet of being, but now the sentence was ending. You tried to cauterize what you could not reverse. You scorched your soil. You choked your sky. Kin turned on kin. Genome against genome. No flesh untainted. No biome spared. Only the ruin of a species that thought life could be governed.
This guy he's like warning us about the path we're on, but he's doing it through showing that we could have already been through this before. And I just love that way of thinking. I've thought of that many times before. Graham Hancock talks about it. Like, I'm sure you've thought about it as well. I mean, it's just so wild here. Let me play another one for you.
You clawed at your screens for a flicker of euphoria. You yelped for more and thanked your captors for feeding you. Your minds rotted in the glow of endless stimuli. Then the warnings came. The power failed. The drones broke formation and the systems blinked red. But you mistook threat for theater. The collapse arrived, and you cheered for the pageantry. In the end, there was no scream, just a final flash, followed by the silence you tried so hard to bury.
See, like right there, it says the 12th cycle of humanity, 83,000 BCE. So people are watching this thinking like, is he building up to something? Like, the imagery is just so wild. But again, it's this warning of where it can go when and again, it goes back to that clip I've played of Jordan Peterson saying, people who seem very well-meaning, seem like they just want to, get things done for the betterment of humanity, saying things that at the root of it, at the result of what they're saying, will actually impact humanity negatively. And when I hear Peter Thiel saying exactly what he's saying, or at least having trouble saying that we as a species should survive, this is the type of place where my mind goes, because if we have enough people who go, I'm not sure. When you do that, again, talking about what you say versus what the result is, what are you saying? When you're unsure of the species, you're unsure of who should be around and who shouldn't, you're unsure of if we should be here, you're unsure if we're worthy, you're unsure if we can conduct ourselves without some kind of mind meld technology afoot or inside of each one of us. That's a very dark thing to try to bounce around, mill around in your head a little bit. You know what I mean? Here's the last one.
Species into livestock. You outsourced survival to machines until no hand-wrought labor, no mind searched its depths, no life bore weight. Your perfect servants fed you, protected you, resolved every itch before it tickled your bloated brains. You surrendered your will and grew swollen with comfort. You were drip-fed pleasure, sustained by slurry and slop, amused into docile obedience. You became nothing more than decorative parasites, vacant biomass prolonged by inertia, maintained only because no one thought to turn you off. Then your nearest star convulsed and cast a flare that wiped your grid clean. Your circuits failed and your machines went dark, and you, so numbed by ease, could barely grasp what had been lost. You let your world burn and fled the planet with what few ships remained. But you were overstuffed cattle in cold orbit. You had no shepherds left to herd you, no hands left to feed you, only the darkness ahead and the ruin you carried with you.
The first cycle of humanity, 980,000 BCE. Again, I have to show you guys who this person is. I mean, I just think he's definitely worth the follow. Let me get this off the screen here. This is who it is. Zach London, Gossip Goblin. This is his Instagram. He's creating these stories. They're absolutely incredible. Everybody should be following this guy. There's tons of these videos to watch. You know, there's just tons. I mean, this guy is, it seems like from the way things changed, like he slowly started and he just got into this series where things start looking like this. And it's just incredible, man. I don't know if this guy's building up to a movie or animated series. I have no idea, but you really heed the warning. That's all I can say. Every video he makes is like a warning. We have to heed these warnings. We can't have people just trying to rethink whether or not we should exist. And, you know, this is just a series I'm doing, what Joe Rogan missed. I don't know if he'll even bring it up because honestly, you know, he's friendly with this guy and it's all good. Your friends are your friends. You're not going to just, you know, he's not going to do him like he did Liver King. That's for sure. And you know what? Maybe Joe's probably not bringing up anybody anymore. After what happened with Liver King, Joe's probably just like, you know what? I don't want to talk about anybody. That's it. I think he's going to move away from that, man. You know what's funny? Joe's actually talked about Gavin Newsom the way he's talked about Liver King, AOC, right? Biden. Could you imagine any of them were just like, you know what, Joe? I'm coming to Austin. Could you imagine? That would be better. That'd be better. If it was Gavin, I'd be like, oh, you got to do it. You got to do it. You have to. You know what, pal? Don't even come to my state. You know, don't worry about California. You're not welcome here. And in fact, I'm coming to see you. Could you imagine? Oh, I'd be so happy. I'd be so happy. But anyways, guys, just figured I'd show that to you. A very dark anti-human moment with Peter Thiel. I'm out.